Hey, welcome back, and welcome to Section 3, Testing Your Smart Contract. In the last section, we completed the code for our smart contract. One important part of that smart contract remains, testing it to ensure it does exactly what it's supposed to. You may not be familiar with writing tests for code, or maybe you know the concept but haven't really spent a lot of time doing it. We're going to start this section off by understanding why tests are necessary. I'm confident this video is going to help you out in multiple ways. You'll learn why tests are an important component of modern software engineering. You'll get some tips and tricks to help you learn how and where you should be writing tests. You're even going to get some tools to help you convince others why tests are important, because I know firsthand that sometimes you're not the one who needs convincing. Are you ready? Well, let's go. Writing tests is time-consuming. Not just writing the tests themselves, but planning what tests are needed and designing your code so that it's actually testable. This makes it tough to get started, especially when you're working under tight time constraints. Stick with me through this video though, and I'm going to give you some tips, guidelines, and strategies to get you, your team, and your manager down with testing. Since writing tests happens early in the development cycle, it's hard to associate them with value. After all, you could be writing code that does something, but here you are writing tests. Tests for code that doesn't exist yet. The truth is, the value from tests comes months or years down the road when you have to make a change to the code and need to make sure that you aren't breaking something. This is a hard habit for humans to grasp. We're very much focused on what's in it for me right now. Think about how many times you've failed on a diet, or when sticking to your New Year's "I'm really going to get in shape this year" resolution. Sticking with a long-term plan that isn't currently causing pain is difficult to do. Then when you decide that you're going to write tests anyway, you're faced with the decision, what tests do I need? This problem forces you to think through your code and the system architecture, and to design it in such a way that it can be tested, and go back to the drawing board when your first solution doesn't work. These are problems you're going to have to face anyway, so the question is, do you want to face them now, before you write the code, or after you have 10,000 lines of code in production? In spite of all these reasons, you're going to write tests anyway. Deep down, you know it's the way it should be done. This is a new project, using new languages and using new tools. It's the perfect time to add some new habits as well. The really interesting thing to me about writing tests is that everyone thinks you're already doing it anyway. Any engineer who looks at your code will know whether you are or not, but that's not who I'm really referring to. I'm referring to your manager, who's counting on you to do the best work possible. Your coworkers who are going to be contributing to this project are counting on you so that they can safely add to the code base without fear of breaking something. Your executives who may not know what tests are, but they know that they've hired the best people possible, and even when they don't know what to ask for, they know that you're doing what's best for everyone involved. And don't forget to include yourself in this category. You want to do work that you're proud of, that's satisfying, and when you're the engineer who has to come back and update this code long after you've forgotten what it does, future you is counting on you as well. Tests are for the people who are trusting you with their ether. Specifically, as we start to write code that transfers people's money, they're counting on you. When they use your app, they're placing their trust in you that you've taken every precaution necessary to ensure the safety of their money. Writing tests isn't all about guilt and motivation though. There are actual tangible benefits to you, so let's review some of those. Typos, incorrect logic, and simple human mistakes introduce bugs into software. By writing tests that verify a function does exactly what it's supposed to is the fastest way to find bugs before they ever leave your workstation. This results in fewer bugs further down the road and saving the time it would take to find them. Making changes to the code, either in the form of updating existing code or adding new features, is easier. By running the test, you can commit your code with a higher level of confidence that everything that used to work still works, because you have a set of tests to validate that. I'll throw in one side note here though. Don't think that you have to have a complete set of tests to cover every possible scenario on day one. It's okay to write the tests that you think are important, and then as you learn more later, add additional tests based on that new information. You get built-in documentation. Tests are usually very readable. This means if you aren't sure how something works, rather than hoping there's some documentation somewhere, you can just look at the tests. They'll show you exactly what it does in both passing and failing scenarios. Debugging gets a lot easier with tests. After all, you only need to go back and look at the changes that were made to the code since the test started failing. You actually end up with a better designed system as a result as well. By forcing yourself to design your code in a way that each component is testable, you build smaller, more functional pieces. This makes code easier to reuse and can help to prevent you from designing monstrous chunks of code that take in a bunch of data and somehow magically spit out an answer at the end. Well, if you were undecided on tests at the start of this video, I hope I've made some progress in convincing you of their value. Let me also offer some tips on how not to write your tests. Don't write your unit tests later. Do it now when it's relevant. If you add it to do for later, once that code is completed, it almost never gets done. Think about the last time you were going to get up in the morning and go to the gym, only when you woke up, you said, nah, I'll do it later. Most of the time, it doesn't happen, right? Don't have someone else write your tests, and there's two reasons for this. Designing your tests will impact how you write your code. If you write the code, then assign the test to someone else, that feedback loop is lost as well as the learning experience. It also takes twice as long. If someone else is writing the test, their first task is to learn how you solved this problem, and that's something you already knew. So now you're spending more time solving a problem that didn't need to be solved. As we finish this video up, let's set the stage for the next videos where we actually write some tests by setting some guidelines for good tests. Tests should be simple and only test one thing. If you find yourself trying to recreate complex scenarios for the test, it's time to take a step back and see how you can break this down further. And tests should be readable. Future developers, which may include yourself, are going to rely on these tests to understand how the code works. Keeping them simple and to the point will be more effective and set an environment where it's easier to keep those tests up to date. You have to be able to rely on your tests. If a test fails, it should be because the conditions dictated it. If you find that some tests fail for reasons other than the code, take a step back and see if you can eliminate any external factors that are incorrectly influencing the test results. And tests should complete quickly. For unit tests, this means a few seconds, and for integration tests, a few minutes at most. The longer it takes for a test suite to complete, the less likely it is that people are going to use it.